ready, girls?
Always. Born ready.
The information and communication technology sector in the Republic of Moldova, which generates about 7% of the country's GDP, continues to be poorly represented by women. Although information technology jobs are among the highest paying, only 20% of them are held by women. Hi, I'm Valeria Baterano, a journalist from DS.com, and in this podcast I have three wonderful women with me here today, whom we will try to identify why there is a gender pay gap, how women can assert themselves in the STEM field, why the field is dominated by men, how many opportunities there are for women in STEM. For those who don't know, the STEM acronym stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Before we begin our discussion, I would like you to meet my guests, and the best way to get to know a person is when the person introduces themselves and say three interesting or representative things about them. So I invite you to introduce yourself, Daniela.
Yeah, sure. Shall I start? So I'm Daniela Plămădeală, a spirited student with 18 years in my pocket, and the fourth of which has been spent volunteering and participating in social events. Three things that I leave up to the listener's interpretation whether are considered to be interesting sound the following way. This month, I'll be participating in my third Erasmus Plus project in Slovenia, Postojna. Second of all, I'm a professional Scrum Master, which is a certificate that validates my knowledge of the Agile principles. And third, I enjoy writing and telling stories that have an impact on people. The National Anti-Corruption Center and the Center for Continuous Electoral Training have both published some of my best articles.
Thank you for this amazing introduction, Daniela.
Thank you.
Anna Maria.
Hi, I'm Anna Maria. I'm a product manager in tech. And a couple of interesting things about me. Maybe there are going to be more than three. Well, I did my studies here in Moldova. I graduated computer science. And also, I had 1 semester studying computer science in the United States. Besides that, I was a Tech Woman Ambassador 2 years ago, promoting, motivating more women to acquire a career in tech. And another interesting fact maybe would be that I really love hiking. It's a new hobby I discovered, so I like going there, climbing mountains.
Do you do hiking in Moldova as well?
Yes.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, I have some of my favorite spots in the north of Moldova, so I can recommend.
Yes, please. Thank you for the introduction, Anna Maria. Joanna?
My name is Joanna Bagadzińska. I'm Young European Ambassador, and I'm also a PhD researcher. So I'm glad to be here and talk about women in academia. I'm doing research partly about Moldova, so I think it might be interesting that I used to live here, and actually it's my third time in Moldova, and I hope it's also not the last one, because I'm a huge fan of people, food, and wine, of course. I'm a dog lover, and in my free time I love traveling, especially by train, so far my longest trip was 25 hours on a train in Kazakhstan, but I hope to have a longer trip in the future.
Have you been to Krikova?
Yes, I have been there.
Thank you for the introduction, Joanna, and thank you for the introduction, girls. Also, could you please tell us more about your activity domain and what are the most common stereotypes in your field? Anna Maria?
Okay. So I've been in tech for almost 8 years. So it started from my studies, and I got my first job in tech actually when I was in the second year in the university. I didn't know back then, but now when I'm working as a product manager, I'm understanding, okay, I was a product manager back there. And the question was about?
Stereotypes, the most common stereotypes in your field.
Okay, so in my field, I would say that there are stereotypes, and I had different kind of situations. They started, I would say, maybe from the high school when I was telling people around me that, hey, I want to go and study IT, so I want to go to technical university. And okay, there were people, including some of my relatives, saying to me, yeah, but you're a girl, that's not what a girl would study. And that's the first time I got to deal with stereotypes. Okay, but this did not stop me. I had other people supporting my decision, including my mom. So I was lucky. And then when I was in university, I also dealt with some of the stereotypes. Some of the stereotypes were that, okay, you're a girl, so you cannot code. And it took a lot of hard work, some more work maybe than it took for others, to show them that, hey, I'm here and I can code. And I did a very good work for my as my final project at the university. I did a master degree where I did, I would say, a great project at the end, and I did code. So I kind of like, okay, the girls can code. But okay, I chose the product management path because I wanted to be in a leading role, and in the coding part, I was missing somehow the communication part, the part where you have to negotiate with different stakeholders, the part where you can take a decision, what are you working on, what you're developing. So that's how I ended up in the product management, but well, it's a long story to say how I ended up here. I didn't know that's what I want to do, and I didn't know that's what I would like. So yeah, that's a long story how I reached here. But that were most common stereotypes, I'd say.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Daniela, what about you? Because I know that you're also passionate about this STEM.
Yeah, surely I am. And I want to mention the fact that I'm a project assistant at a software and technological information services company. Part of my job, my main domain, is to offer assistance, either we're talking about project managers or the project team, in order to facilitate that activity. We can be talking about preparing teams or tracking the system, updating stakeholders on different progress, and making sure that the communication is precise, accurate, and of course formal. About the stereotypes, unfortunately, I've heard some of them. I'm not implicated directly because I'm yet to choose my future career path, but at the moment, some of the most important that I've heard of and I want to talk are also related to IT, but to management at the same degree. So one of them is the stereotype of the male-dominated field, because women are frequently viewed as having lower technical aptitude, the same that Ana Maria mentioned, that being less able to handle challenging tech problems, and we for sure know that is a misconception. Another of the stereotypes that I wanted to mention is the fact that the work-life balance myth is affecting lots of women, because women in the IT industry could be perceived as being less dedicated to their role and more concerned with their responsibilities and personal lives. Another one could be related to management, because it is called the soft leader stereotype, because women are viewed as less assertive and less decisive, less able to handle difficult times, and we for sure know that's not right. History points out to different strategies to that degree. And the last one that I wanted to point out is the emotional stereotype, which argues that women are less fit for leadership positions, given that they are thought to be too emotional to make rational choices. What I wanted to conclude with all of those stereotypes that I mentioned that really pain me is the fact that these biases in management can be detrimental and can establish barriers for women, just like the stereotypes in IT. It's critical to debunk those myths and make sure to praise the accomplishments and efforts of women in leadership positions, because promoting inclusion and diversity in management teams can aid in removing those constraints and fostering an equitable work environment that we can all be part of in the end.
For sure, for sure. Joanna, and what about your field, academic field?
So I'm doing my PhD in political science, and I'm very lucky, to be fair, because through all my path I met amazing people, mostly women, that were very supportive and were role models for me. So the funny thing is that when I was doing my bachelor, I really believed that that's the last degree I will achieve, because I was struggling with it and I was really trying to do my best and make it as perfect as possible, that I said to myself, oh my God, this is such a demanding job. I will never do master even. I never even imagine. And I think this is a huge problem for women in science, that they do not believe in themselves. I mean, like for men, they are socialized differently. So even if they are not competent enough, they are confident enough. and they really believe in themselves. So I would say that maybe not about stereotypes, because I'm doing PhD in social science, so it's not that difficult as in science or IT, but still I think that social expectations are a huge obstacle, because we are like, people expect us to behave in certain way, and they also perceive women differently. So for instance, if a boy is acting in certain way, people will call him assertive or a good leader, whereas with women we will be called like aggressive somehow or very emotional. So I think this is very challenging, because the social perception toward women is different than toward men. And if you don't want to be a person who is there, because we are also expected to, like, let's say, calm down the atmosphere sometimes, to be there, to make everyone feel comfortable, to deal with others' emotions. And toward men, we don't have these expectations. You don't expect a guy to be there and say, oh, please do not say that because someone may be offended. And in academia, you really have to fight for yourself sometimes, because it's also very demanding environment, I would say, very competitive. And if you want to be as competitive as men, unfortunately, many people will say that, oh, look at her, look at the way she's behaving. So the way people see you and judge you is different that they do it in regard when we talk about men. So I think this is very challenging for women in academia.
And I would say it's not only academia. I feel the same. It's going on for the tech, the same perceptions.
And I think that it's very important to understand the stereotypes in order to overcome them. So when we understand them, it is easier to understand what is happening and how to deal with it. And as I have mentioned before, today we will talk about the career in STEM, about the gender gap pay, about the opportunities for women. And for some young people, the decision about their future career is very hard. And this is a real challenge. But Daniela, tell us how you decide you want a career in STEM.
To be honest, I'm not really certain about my next career steps, but what I am confident in is the fact that IT and management offer secure and creative growth opportunities. Through my humble experience in project planning, organizing, and prioritization, while also studying business administration at the Center of Excellence in Economics and Finance, I know that management is my calling, and I am motivated to improve by learning also theoretical, both practical knowledge, at the same time being led by role models that we have in the industry.
Thank you. Anna Maria, I know that you're young and it didn't happen a long time ago, but how was your experience? How you decided to start a career in STEM? Because you mentioned before that a lot of people, even in the school, some professors were very not certain about this path. So how it started for you?
Yeah, as an example, my parents at some point wanted me to be a good doctor. Yeah, that's
very traditional for Moldovan ones.
I guess, and maybe a lot of current students being here trying to understand, okay, what path should I choose, are in the same situation. For me, it was one of the hardest decisions. And actually, the idea of going to IT, it came from my mom. My mom was watching TV, and it was the prime minister back then. It was, I guess, 9 years ago when I chose my university studies and where I chose to go for IT. And my mom was listening to TV, and the prime minister was saying that we have a lack of resources, of human resources in IT. We need more engineers. We need more people. And my mom is coming to me, you have to try this one. For sure, you're going to have like a good job in here, a secure job, as you say, a secure growth opportunities in this domain. I knew nothing about IT. I started reading about opportunities, but I made my mind to go for calculus and study just mathematics. So I applied to other universities in Romania. I applied to other universities in Moldova just for math, studied math because I loved math and I was good in math. And I knew, okay, I got to do something around here. And also I applied to IT because I found this interesting specialty at technical university where you study computer science in English. And I was thinking, wow, that's cool. I passed both of those exams in math and English, and I started learning computer science here. But I still had my mind, and I was convinced I'm going to go to Romania and study math there. But then I said, okay, let's try out how it goes at technical university for 1 month, because in Romania studies start in October. So let's see how it goes here, and then I'm going to leave and go for my studies in Romania. And after a couple of weeks, I liked it so much. I liked my professors, I liked my colleagues, and the people were so different than the people I was interacting with in my village. I'm from big village from the north of Moldova. And I left the community here, so I decided, okay, I'm going to stay here and study computer science. And I really loved it. For the first year, I was a very hardworking student, doing all the programming assignments. And then I started volunteering. And I was never good in public speaking. I was never good with communication. These were all fears of me, and I overcome all my fears. I understood that, I love communicating. I love working with different kind of stakeholders, working in teams, taking decisions, making plans, coordinating projects and whatever. And yeah, at some point I decided maybe I should go in sales. And at some point in my career, I was a salesperson selling tech products. And then I understood something is missing for me. I want more. I'm missing the technical part, the decisions, the work with the engineers where you decide what to do, the research part. And that's how I ended up in project management. And from project, I went to product management, where I truly love my job and what I do.
This is so inspirational.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a long journey until I found what I love. But I feel sometimes you gotta try out different things, because I did try programming web apps. I did try programming mobile. I still do a bit of programming. I'm still passionate about data, AI, machine learning. And from time I'll do some kind of data analysis in Python. But that's like a side thing that I'll do. And that fits perfectly for a product manager, because as a product, you're analyzing data, understanding what users do within your platform or product, what they love, what they don't love. So you take decision how to make them use that more.
That's so nice. Joanna, and what about yourself? Because you mentioned that at the bachelor you hadn't had such a great experience as Ana Maria did. So how did you decide to have an academic path?
I mean, the experience itself was really good. I made a great connection, and I also had very nice supervisor. But the thing was that she was very demanding, and I'm very grateful for that right now. But the thing is that I always wanted what I don't want to do, but I was never sure what I really want to do. So then I applied for Erasmus, I applied for my master's, and still it was a decision that I had to make in a very short notice. So the thing was that I was accepted for my Erasmus. I was planning to go there on Saturday at 12, and on Friday at 12, so 24 hours earlier, I got accepted for interdisciplinary studies. And I was like, okay, let's give it a go. And it was a very good decision I made, because it was pandemic. So I didn't know that it would be like this, but I was planning to go to Italy, so I stayed. And then I was doing this master. I wasn't sure what the life will bring me. And of course, I was looking for opportunities as a final year student. So I applied for a grant. They wanted some research help, so very basic tasks, but among academics. And I wasn't accepted, actually. They wrote me back that you have very little experience, little publication, and so on. But are you interested in PhD? Because I personally, like the professor that approached me, I am personally interested in you because you have very nice CV, and I think you would be a perfect material. So this is how I started. I was still doing my master, my final year, but that was the support I got, that I really believed that, okay, it is something for me. So it was very demanding because, of course, I was finishing my master. I was working on my PhD, but as I said, I was very lucky because all of the supervisors I had were women, and they were very supportive and very successful. So my master supervisor was also she is a very successful woman. She's in media, she's doing research, fluent in many languages, working for the EU. So very inspiring, and she always believed in me. She was like, yeah, you go girl, you can do it. And the same with my PhD supervisors. So I think that it's really important to have these role models, especially women, because I think that it somehow empower you and give you, like, you start to believe in yourself. So it was by accident, I would say, the PhD. I had it somewhere in mind, but it wasn't like my main plan. And I'm a very active person in terms of social involvement, fighting for rights, and so on. And I have the feeling that when you have a PhD, you not necessarily have to stay at the academia later on, but it's also a way to, let's say that, okay, here is a paper I get, because we as women have sometimes this syndrome that we are like, oh, maybe I have these skills, but then your inner critic starts talking to you and it's like, no, you are not good enough. So I was like, okay, this is the way to prove to myself even that you've got this paper, you have the proof, like the written proof. So come on, girls, don't underestimate your skills because you have it written. So this is how I ended at academia, and I'm really glad that I made this choice, even though it's very demanding. But if there are any women or girls who are thinking that they are not good enough, just give it a go, because you never know. And sometimes just by rejecting, you will have another chance for something else.
You mentioned that it happened by accident, and it was such a beautiful accident.
Yeah, it was indeed.
And it is very important that women are supported in a fight for equal rights. Although the level of laws, they stipulate that no one should be discriminated against on basis of ethnicity, religion, gender, but the phenomenon of gender gap pay is well known throughout the world. A study by Forbes finds that while there are improvements in pay for people of different genders doing the same job, the problem is not completely eradicated. Joanna, I know that you had your bachelor in legislation. What does the European legislation say about this specific problem?
So in the EU, we have the regulations regarding discrimination. So of course, everyone is equal under the law. So in theory, everything should work perfectly. The problem is with practice, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Anna Maria, have you had experiences in Moldova when you were paid differently than your male colleagues, but you were doing the same job?
Well, actually, yes, I do have a story here. But it's related to what you said, to the self-confidence. It's related to the support you have as a woman and as a man as well. My situation, I think it was one of my first jobs I had, where I was at lunch with a colleague of mine, a male colleague, and I was still young, okay, and we started discussing about our salaries. And actually, I got to know my salary is a bit bigger than his. Yes. And I was surprised, he was surprised, because I was, I guess, still a student and working back then. And he had obviously more years of experience. And I got to understand that I had a bit more than he did because I asked for more.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked for less, so he had less. And yeah, that situation made me think a lot of, I felt like it's not fair. Like, and that's what is happening on the market. Every interview, every company I went through, they never put in front of you, so here is what salary you can have, and here is what you can reach, let's say in 1, 2, or 3 years. Most of the time, all the companies will ask, what salary do you want? What are your expectations? So that's what you ask, and it depends a lot on your self-confidence. If you are told you're a good one and you deserve more. In my case, I remember and actually, yeah, it's the community, the network of people I was around, and they were like, you should go there and ask this sum. It's like, you crazy? I don't have any experience yet in this domain, and that's a lot. Nobody will give it to me. That's what you should ask for. So I took all the courage. I trusted myself, and I went though to the interview, and I told them, okay, that's what I want. They didn't give me what I want, but I feel like they gave me the bare minimum, or they decreased it to the maximum that they could give to me. So it was more than my colleague had.
Oh, such an interesting story. How do you think? Why is this happening? Why we can see in some domains the pay gap? Joanna, how do you think?
First of all, I think we don't talk enough about money. It's still a huge taboo, and we don't share this type of information. And especially if you just enter the market, how can you know which amount is good enough, as you said?
Yeah.
Like, if no one told you, someone who is more experienced, how to just like say like go and ask for this or that, how can you know? You always, if you don't have relevant experience, you tend to say, okay, I will ask for little, because then they will say, okay, maybe he or she is not experienced enough, but it will be like cheaper, so they will accept it. But this is not how it should work. I think that we really should talk about it. We should educate ourselves how to negotiate, because as you said, it also, you have to be very brave to go and ask and said that, okay, I think and I know that I need to earn more because I have skills, I have experience, and so on. So I think that's a huge problem in society, not only in Moldova. I think it's still a very huge taboo that we don't talk enough about the money. We don't teach people how to negotiate, how to stand for the money.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned earlier that women don't have this skill to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading a lot. I'm talking with women, and I work myself a lot on my negotiation skills. It takes a lot of work, and so most of the time it's about negotiation, something that sometimes men are better at maybe, and it's about self-confidence. You also mentioned it. So somebody who's more confident will go there and ask for more, and sometimes they will be given more. And somebody who's not that confident in themselves, they will accept anything.
It's also about how you, what perception of your competences you have.
Yeah.
Because it's a very good example of me and my friend. We graduated from the same studies. We are doing PhD together, so our academic experience is quite the same. And there was a very nice job position. So he's an expert on Czech Republic, and they were looking for expert on that, and also with knowledge of Czech language. He was still in the process of learning, but his like level was like, let's say, A1, A2, because it was at the very beginning. And they were also looking for an expert with Russian language. And I've been studying Russian for a long time, but I was still like, yeah, my Russian is not good enough. And he was like, come on, send an application. I was like, no, they said that they want person fluent in Russian. So I met all of the criteria. You know, it was like list of 10 or 15. And that was the only criteria that I wasn't completely without this competence. It was like, I wasn't fluent. And he met 8 criteria, let's say, out of 15, like let's say half. And the crucial one was language. He didn't have this competence, and he applied. He was like, let's give it a try. And that's the thing, that we tend to think that we have to really fit exactly into position, that you have to meet all the criteria. If you don't meet all of the 20, oh no, I won't do that. And with guys, it's like, oh, I meet 1 criteria out of 20. I'm a perfect for that. So that's the thing as well. And then when you negotiate the salary, you're also like, okay, maybe I don't have that one skill that is crucial, so I won't ask for more. Whereas for guys, it's like, oh, I learned this one thing, give me like higher salary. So that's the thing I would say as well.
Yeah, I think there are researches done on this.
Yes,
the same
particular thing.
And I was once myself catched in this loop. Yeah, because I knew about that, and when you know about things that can happen to you, you can prevent them. Like, okay, I'm not gonna be in this trap. And one day, I met. It was actually last year. I met somebody who's working at Google, a product manager. I'm a product manager here, and I was talking to him. I was telling hey, I saw a very nice job at Google, like a data product manager, and I love it. It has everything. I have everything that's requires, but I feel like I need to prepare my CV better. I have to write like an awesome cover letter. It's Google. And he was like, you see? And he's a man telling me, that's your problem. That's your woman problem. You always tend for perfect things. You want it to be perfect. You want it to make ideally. I, as a man, I don't care. I see that half of the requirements, I have them, I'm applying for it, and I'm getting the job. But that's what I noticed women do. They tend to have not 100%, 150%.
Yes.
Overthink it.
Yeah.
And researching for this particular podcast, I found that several companies currently apply the pay transparency policy as a means of narrowing the gender pay gap and fostering a dynamic and positive working environment that builds trust. At the same time, that not always seems to be the right solution because it comes with several impediments, such as prompting employees to negotiate personalized rewards or dealing with the justification for visible pay differentials. Joanna, how do you think at the legislative level, the implementation of a mandatory pay transparency policy would reduce the gender pay gap?
I think so, because I think that's one of the reasons why it's still such a big problem, that we are not aware about these averages, especially in companies. So for me, it's kind of crazy that you can do the same job and just be paid less just because you negotiated differently. And also, if you apply for a job, especially for young people that don't know the market, and they just apply for a job without knowing what salary they can expect, this is very unfair policy. Because, of course, if you are more experienced, older, you know what the salary is in a sector. But as I said, if you are brand new to the sector, how can you know? So I think that for us, it may be very, sometimes even uncomfortable concept at the beginning. But I think it's just because we are not used to it. So I think that the more popular it would be, the easier for us it would come, because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm gonna fight with my colleague from the desk next to me and so on. And it's not about fighting, it's about just not creating these sometimes toxic situations. So yeah, I think that that's something that should be more widely implemented.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also like to introduce a subject, the topic of management of perception. That's something that seemed interesting to me, because even if I agree with Joanna, I still think that the fact that men can introduce themselves in a way that it's more admirable and it's a more encouraging attitude than it is also because of the self-critic and the imposter syndrome that seems to be a thing for the majority of women, but not really for men, because they do not overthink those details that obsess us in a way. The fact that we want to be perceived as perfect, to have everything in order, to be seen as feminine, but at the same time as intelligent, and to bring something to the table that sometimes men do it and subconsciously without thinking it through details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anna Maria, how do you think about the pay transparency policy? Is it a solution for the Republic of Moldova?
It's an interesting question. I never was in an environment where they have a pay transparency policy. And I was thinking it the other day, maybe it would be a solution. And I think there are a couple of advantages. At least, you know, when there is a pay transparency and you know, okay, so I'm here, I'm a junior, or I'm a middle specialist expert. I know that my salary can be in this range. I know if I grow more, learn more, do that and that, I can have more. So I was thinking that maybe it's a good thing, so that women and men are both for the same roles, are both in the same positions. Because in the previous situation, which I was telling you, where somebody with more experience, and okay, it was a man, it's happening with both women and men. And it was not fair. I was not feeling comfortable. My other colleagues started to be jealous of me or envious. So in the such a situation, I think, where you have a pay transparency and you know where you stand and what are your qualities or what are the requirements that brought you here to have these kind of salaries and what you have to do to grow, that's a good thing. That's an advantage to pay transparency policies. And you mentioned that one interesting fact that pay transparency might make you, I don't know, fight or with your colleagues, or why is he having more than I do? And I'm thinking a good way of implementing it would be like, I was associating the whole pay transparency with a process which they had in United States, where you have your marks. So you never knew what marks your colleagues had. I never knew, is he having a C, a B, or an A for that test. I knew only my marks, but I knew what are the grades of the role. So I knew I can have an A, a B, a C, and a D. So it's like, you knew that the more you know, you get A or B. And in the same time, you don't know what your colleagues have, but you can notice, okay, they're smart, so maybe they have an A as well.
Yeah, I think it's not about comparing to each other. It's about, I have a very strong sense of justice, and I really hate when it's very untransparent and unclear. But if you have like very clear criteria, as you said, you know that, okay, I have this and that skill, and as you also address the problem of this syndrome, it's just like, I know that I do this and I will be promoted. So I think that this is very connected, and this is something that we really need to make this policy very clear and understandable, and very, like, let's say, fair in general.
It seems real in theory, but I guess it would be very hard to make it in practice, especially in Moldova, because I feel like the confidentiality policy that we have when we sign the contract implements the fact that we shouldn't discuss our salaries in public. And that's why one of the topics that I think goes head in head with this legislative initiative of the transparency, talking about the pay gap and so on. So I feel like it could be a solution, but it still has a lot of discussion to afford in order to clarify some of the points and make it work to this exact extent, to Moldovan's industry.
Thank you, girls. And Daniela, I know that you are passionate about IT industry, and you are sure that it plays a crucial role in driving digital innovation, and moreover has a social responsibility to address the gender gap in the workforce. And according to the Eurostat, just 17% of the people working in STEM across the Europe are female. Weren't you scared by these numbers when you decided to pursue a career in STEM?
So according to the law of larger numbers, that's something that my math teacher always brings up for some reason, if most women shy away from STEM fields, let's suppose, they are most likely not the right fit. That's what he would say. Well, I tend to disagree with this point, because statistics shouldn't serve as a personal decision-making tool. Rather, they should be considered an indicator of the status quo that can either halt our growth or inspire us to step outside of our comfort bubble. And that was the exact situation in my case. That's why I chose to try this career path and to taste it, to see if that's something that would speak to me in a certain way, that it's worth pursuing in the future.
Anna Maria, over the years, you have been involved in several projects aimed at empowering women. You are a co-founder of the Women's Student League and in 2020-2021, you were appointed ambassador for Tech Women. The program includes monthly events with a non-formal characters, career orientation, mentoring, exchange of experiences, and trying to empower women to go and to choose a STEM career. Can you tell us about your experience as an ambassador? What would be the most important impediments and most valuable motivational elements in the STEM field that influence women's decisions?
Influence the decision to choose STEM or
to
not?
To choose or not to choose, yes.
Okay, so I would say that an impediment not to choose STEM is because it's a male-dominated field and it might scare somebody. And also the whole thing that's, okay, it's about engineering, it's tech, and maybe we grew up like that, okay, that's not for girls. So this kind of stereotypes, this is one hard impediment for women not choosing STEM. And me, myself, okay, I choose this path. I didn't give it too much thought, okay? I was loving math, so I was like, I'm going for it. And I felt it through the years, the male dominance, or that most of people are men in the field. In faculty, for example, we were 5 girls and 20 boys. And then when I came to the work field, being the only one woman in a meeting room was a common situation for me. And this somehow motivated me to start all these kind of initiatives, to do more, to inspire women, because I noticed we can do great things. I met wonderful women, and then I was like, okay, why not build a community? And the first thing that we built, okay, was the Students' Female League in engineering. So it was me and my roommate while we were still in university. We were like, okay, let's do a community of all the girls from here, from technical university, do interesting projects, motivate ourselves, increase our self-confidence, negotiation skills, and all these skills that we need through our career. And then there was Tech Women Moldova, the whole community, and I was chosen as an ambassador back in 2021. And when I was in the Tech Women community, one idea that I had for a couple of years was a mentoring program, and I decided, okay, let's do it for the women that are already in IT, or women that are not confident about decision, and just motivate them to go for an IT career, because they can do it. Anyone can do it, because the IT field, the tech field, is so broad. You can do so many things. The field needs creative people. The field needs people, even our perks, or all those you were mentioning, emotional, that's a good thing. That's a field. We should learn to use all these perks as our advantages, in our advantage, because they're emotional people are needed, and there are people who can understand different people, who you can talk to people, understand their point of view, and then take the best decision that will satisfy everyone in the room. Okay. So I understood that we can do that, we're good in it, and there should be more women. And yeah, at some point just felt lonely to be the only woman in the room. And I decided we have to do something about it, but that's not right. So yeah,
but it's I think it's very associated with the social expectations, because there are also men who are very emotional and they deal with emotions and social issues very well, but they don't do it on daily basis because they are not expected to do so. So I think that that's one thing, as we discuss here, but the other thing is to change like the social perception in general, not to have some certain expectations or roles that are divided regarding the gender. So it shouldn't be a gender thing in general. So I think it's a very complex topic.
But it's very internalized, especially in Moldova. The prejudice and societal norms tend to control a lot of parts of our perception of how we treat others, and I know it is wrong because we talk about it and try to raise awareness on this kind of topics. It still seems very hard to do so, especially when we have parents, grandparents, or relatives that make it, that accentuate it, and that make sure that boys shouldn't cry or girls should always be treated like a lady and so on. Things that in a certain way shape the way we see society, and for sure there is a lot of hard work, a lot of initiatives like this one in order to debunk those myths.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But how do you think women could be motivated to work in the STEM field?
In the end, I think it's a lot about self-confidence. We get back to those things, and it's a lot about the support that you get. So simply motivated, I don't know, it's a cool field to work with. There are a lot of inspirational stories, success stories. There are a lot of women working in tech, women leading tech companies. And once you see those stories, once you're faced with successful stories, all you have to do is trust yourself, trust that you can do it. And sometimes, it's necessary to have that kind of support that Joanna was mentioning about. Because in my case, I also was lucky at some point, and I could see the difference when I had somebody supporting me. I had a situation where I was in a role. It was really hard for me. At some point, when I started as a project manager, there were a situation I didn't know what I'm really doing. I was like doing random things, trying to make it right. But you know how they say, fake it until you make it. So that's what I did.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. But I was lucky in that situation to have the support of top management. It was a man that was the top management, but having those support words, having like him telling, yo, you did a great job. Nice project charter. I like your plan. Even these small things, they mean a lot, and they're so motivational, and they made me want more, do more. So these little things, I feel like, motivates women to continue to grow.
Does it matter from whom these things are coming?
For me, no. Anyone. It can be your husband, your wife, it can be your manager, your colleague at work.
You can say it to yourself. Actually, I think that's the biggest problem, that we say sometimes even unconsciously to ourselves so many mean things. So the question I always ask myself when I'm somehow mad at me or disappointed by myself, I'm like, would you say the same to your sister or to your best friend? And the answer is always no. I would just cheer her up, try to make her as comfortable as possible. So why do we do that to ourselves? Like, if there is something you wouldn't tell to your friend, don't say it to yourself. So my advice would be just to stop caring that much. And if you feel like doing something, just go for it. As you said, fake it till you make it. Sometimes it will be a successful story. Sometimes it will be a disappointment. But for me, like from the perspective, I have to say that all these, let's say, bad memories I had and things that I thought that I didn't manage, I wasn't successful at, they turned out to be a very good at the end. It was just a different outcome that I expected to. So I think we really should stop overthinking, underestimating, and just like stop caring, just keep doing and keep saying nice things to each other, because it stays in your head, even if you are not aware of that. That's why I'm very happy that we have a space like this, and women like are more willing to say nice things to each other, because I think that's also very like sometimes our thing, that we are very competitive, and women tend to be like, oh, you are so attentive, fighting among each other, whereas guys are like, oh yeah, bro, nice, well done, like you are so cool. So we need this type of energy, this kind of atmosphere. So it's super, super important that we have the space, and the community. And the community can be very informal. It can be like your sister, your friend. Just say her, good job. So yeah, say something nice to her. Like if you are listening to us right now, I think like that's the task for today, to empower at least one woman.
Daniela, does it matter to you?
Of course it does. I was thinking about the fact that we expect so much of the validation to come from the external sources, and I think that's where we lack some kind of attention, because we should be the source, the magnet, the sun around which our successes revolve. And even those disappointing stories, as they might look at the first eye, we have a Moldovan idiom for that, something of the sort, when a door closes, another opens. And I feel like every disappointment should be looked as like an opportunity for the future, because you cannot win something without having to lose something. Even if that meant a contest, I don't know, a dream that you once had, but you overgrew that point and now you have to rethink your goals list, to set your expectations clear and right and smart, of course, because we have smart objectives that we should follow. And of course, trust in yourselves. Don't let anyone tell you that you cannot accomplish your goals.
And I think that most of our problems come from educational system, from kindergarten, from school, where somehow maybe I don't know, maybe professor don't want to do it, but they subconsciously do it, and they somehow reshape our idea about our future, and they somehow reshape or make us to think where we should go or which path should we choose. How do you think in the Republic of Moldova the system influenced the decision of girls and boys to choose the future job or no?
It's a hard question. I would say it has some kind of influence, the educational system, and especially, that's, as you mentioned, kindergarten and schools might have some kind of influence. And not only the educational, it's also coming from your families. We were having the other discussion that, cars for boys, dolls for girls. And I think that's where it's starting. When a girl cannot have a car because cars are for a boy and the dolls are for girls.
Joanna, is this stereotypical thinking are only particular for post-Soviet countries or no?
To be fair, I don't like this generalization. Post-Soviet countries, I've been doing research in this area for right now around 8 years. And it's very divided. So you have Latvia, which is post-Soviet country. You have Moldova, but also Russia is a post-Soviet country. So I think it's a too big generalization. But I think it's more about social awareness, and it differs among countries. And of course, it's connected to history. But I think it more depends on the thing that we as society are doing right now. So what's the attitude in the society, what the society wants to achieve. So of course all the country has to deal with its history, but what matters in this regard is what the country wants to achieve, what's the attitude in the society. So we really shouldn't focus that much on the past, but rather on the things that we as a society wants to achieve, what are values that are important for us. So I would say that's the thing in this case.
Yeah. And I think I agree, and I like the idea. I think that, in the past, it's hard for me to recall how it was with me, because in the end, I choose tech as my career. But I agree here that the schools, kindergarten can have a big influence on, let's say, who choose a tech career. A big influence that, hey, you're a goal and you can code, or you can do that. You can be a manager, you can be a team leader, you can be a very good engineer. So I feel indeed it depends where we want to go and what we want to achieve. And I also feel like there are already initiatives. I know companies that have projects within the schools. I know organization, Girls Go IT being one of them. They do these boot camps, training courses for teenage girls, and they let them experiment, learn programming. And then I personally know girls who went through Girls Go IT and then came to study computer science at Technical University of Moldova. So I feel like that's where we can do, and we are doing a couple of things. And I could see with myself that a number of girls in computer science is growing slowly, or even more. I think if you go now to Technical University of Moldova, you might see like 50-50 girls in classes. But that's not for all the fields in engineering, for computer science, I guess. But if you go to a company, you're not gonna see the 50-50, I feel like.
Information technology jobs are among the highest paying, but income aside, Daniela, can you tell us about your STEM experience at a software and information technology services company as a junior project manager? Maybe you could tell us 3 valuable lessons you learned during those 10 months?
Of course. So 11 months actually.
Oh.
No worries. I feel like it's not really a long time, but still it's a time where I've got to experience and expand my leadership abilities, to become familiar also with internal processes, but with access control, because at some point I was responsible for that. Improved my interpersonal skills, which is something that I also did as a young European ambassador and continue to develop while working as a project assistant at the software and information, as you said, technology services company. My practical management and prioritization of work, interaction with stakeholders, as previously mentioned, will, in my opinion, unquestionably act as a springboard for future opportunities, for ways to develop, to try to be an example and be motivated by our industry examples. So 3 soft skills ideas that I've tried to develop in the last period of time. Why I wanted to say soft skills is because I feel like those are as important as technical skills, but are being talked about less for some reason. And that's curious to my opinion, because by all means, they mean a lot more than we think about them. So 3 that I wanted to share with you guys today was one of them, understanding and controlling emotions, because I feel like the emotional intelligence is overlooked, especially by the educational system, where all they talk about is intelligence, IQ, and so on, how you should be good at maths and Romanian, geography, understand everything, prepare for a bachelor exam, and so on. But sometimes neglect the fact that you have to realize and to work through managing conflicts, through maintaining a positive work environment, even at stressful times. Another point could be the fact that projects really change quickly, and you should have the ability to be flexible and to adjust to certain circumstances and obstacles in order to get the better outcome out of the situation. And the end, the last but not the least, of course, is solving problems, because projects frequently come with unforeseen difficulties. And as a project assistant in my case, I can be asked to assist in coming up with solutions. And the way to successfully handle this kind of issues is by developing critical thinking and, of course, critical analysis, the ability to think outside of the comfort bubble, to think about the external consultants as much as your team, and to try to balance it all in the best way possible.
Thank you for sharing with us.
My pleasure.
Anna Maria, Eurostat mentions that only 5% of leadership positions in technology industry are held by women. And I think that you are a worthy example of young women in STEM in Moldova. How difficult is it to reach a leadership position in STEM being a woman? You mentioned before that you were the only woman in the meetings, and how hard is it?
Somehow I think I got used to that, and university got a good job in preparing me for that, because you see in the faculty we were just 5 women and 20 boys, so I somehow got used to that. And you have to deal with your own fears sometimes. You have to prepare yourself with more courage to say something, to interrupt people, those things. So we go again to those self-confidence, courage, persistence, and it's these things that you have to have in order to be good and reach that management role in the tech field. And other than that, I feel like everyone in the management, they accept women. I never felt like somebody will underestimate me. It's vice versa. I love that my colleagues and directors, I'm working with the technical director, VP of product, and other top management stakeholders. And I love that they also hear for what I have to say. And I'm also all the time prepared. I have arguments. I'm argumenting my ideas. My ideas are heard, and then my ideas are implemented. And yeah, I understand sometimes it takes more courage. It takes work. I do my research that I have to do. But I love that everyone is accepting that, and I feel confident, and sometimes I just wish there were more women, But yeah, you're right. If you were to look in the top management of the most tech companies, the number of women in there is very low, and I don't know how to explain that.
Maybe it will become better.
Yeah. We already, I was mentioning, we see better
Yes,
situation
about the university.
in university, but I don't see it in the workforce. But in jobs, I don't see that many women, but I'm expecting it to come maybe 5 years, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know.
Joanna, how is it for you to be a woman in academic field? Because it's also a bit dominated by men.
Yeah, and I also have to say that I'm not doing research in, let's say, communication or education, so those sectors that are typically associated with women. And also my research is focused on power and international politics and so on. So I have to say that sometimes it's very challenging, especially if you do research which contains interviews, because people don't treat you seriously. But I also take it as an opportunity because people underestimate me. So if it's very demanding speaker, I can just, got all the information pretty easily, because they are like, oh, you're just a girl, like 20ish, and what can you know? And it's very easy to acquire some informations. But still, it's a very challenging, and I think that I have a good character to this because I don't care personally. And I never felt that it's something related to gender, because if I want something, I just go for it. And among my field, we have 18 people right now doing this PhD and only 2 women. But I never felt that I'm worse or anything like this. I'm a very competitive person, and I just like to achieve what I want. But it's a very personal thing. Like, you have to have this confidence, some level of confidence, and just not caring. That's the thing, I would say.
I think that for our listeners would be very interesting to know which stereotypes or labels have you destroyed in your field since the beginning of your work in the STEM, in the academic field. Anna Maria, you mentioned about the coding, that everyone was telling you that a girl cannot code, so you destroyed one stereotype.
Yeah. If you were to look at this way, that's right. I still do coding. I do data analysis because I'm passionate about data, machine learning, AI. I did a couple of machine learning models at some point. At my previous company, I did a machine learning model that predicted which employee is more likely to leave the company, let's say, in the next 6 months. So yeah, and I have also a situation here. I feel like when I was still young, working for one of those first companies, and at some point I was told, okay, I was young, I was a project manager, and I'm sitting in a meeting room with a couple of my colleagues, and I was, how they called it, maybe bossing around in their words. I was just doing my job. And at some point I'm told, who are you here to tell us what to do? You know nothing, you know zero. Yeah, that's a situation I had to deal with. And it's a good thing when you don't take it personally, because that's what I did. I was thinking, okay, what should I do in this kind of situation? This is my team. I'm supposed to work with these people. And in that situation, I went to the top management, which I was already mentioning. I had very good support, so top management. So I escalated the problem. The top management resolved the conflict between us because, okay, obviously there was a conflict. I was having very close communication with top management. Top management was telling me, okay, you have to do this thing with your team. And then I go to the team and tell them, okay, we have to do this thing. And then they tell me, are you here to tell us what to do? So in this type of situation, I escalated the problem. And what I did next, okay, I didn't take it too personally, or maybe I did take a bit, because after that, I started learning more, I started doing more, I did the whole machine learning model that predicted employees who might leave in the next couple of months, the company. So I did a whole project by myself, and somehow I wanted maybe show them and maybe more show myself, just gain more confidence that I can do that. So they're not right. I'm not here. I'm not a zero for sure. And that's one of my examples how I broke some stereotypes.
Daniela, would you like to share some?
There is something interesting regarding the cultural barrier. Even though I've been on several Erasmus Plus projects where you have to interact with different kind of nationalities and learn about things that are outside of your zone, let's say it like that, working with people from different nationalities can be sometimes a challenge, as they do perceive some things in a different way that we Moldovans do. Having the opportunity to, for example, work with someone who's not very detail-oriented, could seem like you're too obsessed over details, or maybe being too polite can mean something else. There are challenges that you have to interpret through the way, and being able to not put labels on anyone disregarding their culture, but also learning more about it, because I had the opportunity to learn about Diwali, that's the Indian festival, and I truly liked it and feel like one day I'll go and visit it, because some of my colleagues described it to me in a way that seemed very, very interesting and worth visiting. What else? I feel like having the ethics in order to treat every subject with patience, even though the topic seems so easily to be solved. Sometimes there are people who like to overcomplicate things, to explain it till the death of dawn. You still have to know how to treat it in a way that everybody feels comfortable, feels like a safe zone, and no one would treat others in the way that Ana Maria described, because if it happened to me, I'm for sure I would have taken it personally. It would have been for that moment a catastrophe, because emotional intelligence is really important, and school doesn't teach you that. You have to fully develop yourself, to read books, to find women whom you can talk to on this topic, exactly like we are doing it today, but we're being listened to, of course. So the difference is that you have to be open to make mistakes and realize that it's normal. That's part of the human experience, especially at your first job. That's my case. And I'm so glad and thankful to the role models from my company, women who are powerful, who are ambitious, who are determined to do what it takes to succeed, even though they are encountered and men are always there to tell them maybe, you can do better next time, or maybe try not to appear so emotional. As it is part of the opportunity to learn more, and even that, let's say, critic, it depends on you, the way you treat it, the way you wanted to make an impact on you. And I know it's easier said than done. It's easier to say don't care, because for me, Joanna's method never works. For me, it's very important how I am perceived, and that's why maybe when I make a mistake, I then think about it, even if it's not as important as it seems. It's important to find the golden line in which you do not overcomplicate matters, but at the same time realize it's a mistake. You'll get over it, and next time you'll do better.
Thank you. Joanna, what about you?
I cannot say that I destroyed any stereotype or label, because I think it's very personal. And by personal, I mean that it's not something that you can overcome. It's something that other people think about you. And unfortunately, it's not something that you can have a huge impact on. Of course, you can just make people make their mind somehow, to some extent. But this is not my job to... Because, I do what I think I should do, and I stopped at some point. I just stopped caring, because the thing is, if you wouldn't take an advice from the person, why you take critique from this person? So this is this person's job to deal with stereotypes, with the labels that they are doing, because they have some personal grounds for labeling people and having this type of scheme in their mind. So my job is to be the best person I can be, but according to my values. And there are too many people, and each person has an opinion, so you cannot care about others' opinion, because there are too many opinions. So as long as it's something that you feel comfortable with, this is something that you want to do, and you are okay with it, just it's not your job to fight with labels. You are a role model by the way you are acting, and somehow you can show how to, just change people's minds, but not on purpose. This is something that happens accidentally, I would say.
Yeah, you just break the stereotypes by being good at what you do.
And although there is currently a significant discrepancy between the number of men and women employed in STEM, how do you think this number will evolve in time?
For me, I think it's difficult to really predict how the gender imbalance in STEM will evolve, but several trends and indicators and initiatives like this one tend to emphasize the fact that it's gradually improving, the fact that increased awareness, like we mentioned for several times today, for example, the issue of gender imbalance in STEM fields, is becoming more openly and widely recognized, and the more organizations are talking about it and taking steps at the same time to promote diversity and inclusivity in those tips, the more the merrier, I'd say. And while progress for sure has been made, I feel like there is still a long way to go before gender equality in STEM fields is achieved, and to create a more inclusive and supportive environment for women in STEM for us, I feel like it's not a one-person job. It's the job of governments, of corporations, educators, and of course individuals that must continue to work together and to assure the safe space, and not only safe, but the opportunity to develop and to educate yourself could and should be completely drawn to an end. We shouldn't satisfy ourselves with saying that, oh, all right, progress has been made, congratulations, we're winning. I feel like we should evaluate what we have, appreciate it, and plan the future steps in order to disseminate the information and to stop enlarging those barriers, those constraints that make us women feel underestimated, inferior, or less active than male in the same industry.
Thank you.
Yeah, good points. I agree with what Daniela mentioned, and I feel, there are going to be more women in STEM, because I feel like everyone understood that there is needed to be more female perspective in the tech industry, STEM industry, because most of the time I feel like females watch things from another point of view, so they can add additional value to your product or to your company. And we already see those organization movements, communities such as Girls Go IT or Tech Women community, which encourage, motivate women to pursue a career in tech. And as I mentioned, Girls Go IT, they had their programs in high schools, and I know personally girls that came from Girls Go IT directly to study computer science at Technical University of Moldova, and the number of female students is increasing, so I'm guessing soon enough it will start increasing in the workforce.
Ana Maria, you mentioned already about some opportunities. Could you please say maybe more academic and non-formal opportunities that are there in Moldova for women who want a career in STEM?
Yeah, I already mentioned about Girls Go IT, so that will be a great program for girls in high school who want to understand what's it all about, what's this engineering and computer science. So test it out, try it, and understand, is it for me or not? Other than that, I mentioned we founded the Students' League in Engineering, Female Students' League in Engineering at Technical University of Moldova. It's a community of girls that also empower, develop your soft skills, and get you ready for your career in STEM. Tech Women Moldova would be another community that I encourage women to join. It's a very nice community of aspiring women to get a career in tech, and even women who already have a successful career and are there to share their story, to encourage other women or even mentor other women in their career in tech. So I guess this will be my free resources, local resources that everyone can check for now. There are many more. I don't keep track of all of those, but these free organizations, I was part in some ways. I founded the Female Students League in Engineering. I was a Tech Woman ambassador, and for Girls Go IT, I was a mentor teaching other girls how to code in Python. So that's why I have to tell something about these organizations.
Daniela, maybe you would like to complete the list?
I was actually thinking more about the domains in which women could gain emphasize information and control that don't really seem like your typical to-go least opportunity or least prospect. It would be about artificial intelligence, which is a topic arising today in discussions, cybersecurity, renewable energy, a topic that especially Moldova needs a lot of support on, space exploration if you want to dream big. And also we're also in high demand, and at the same time these fields not only provide high pay, but also job security, opportunities for advancement and growth, which I think at the end of the day is very important.
Thank you.
And we do have actually a couple of communities in AI. I know about AI. I'm into the data AI here. I know, and I could recommend AI in Action. They do have interesting hackathons, projects that like long-term projects where you can yourself make a machine learning model or an AI, build it from scratch within a team.
I will also recommend Young European Ambassadors and the EU Neighborhood website if you are looking for opportunities. So.
Joanna, why is it important to ensure equal opportunities for everyone in any field?
For me, this is kind of obvious. So the thing that we still have to ask this type of question, that's also the answer why, because it's 2023 and it's such a pity that we have to address those type of questions, and it's still a thing that we have to wonder why we do need equal rights. So this is something for me that it's very energy consuming. I know why I am fighting for it. I know why we are talking about it right now. But imagine we could do so many different things right now. We could talk about different things. And, once again, it's 2023 and we are all equal and the mentality should be different. So we should ensure it just to, give people the feeling that we are really a part of a modern society, and it's not because you are a woman, man. It's not about sexual orientation, skin color, and so on. It's about competences.
And in closing, I'd like each of you to leave an encouraging thought for women who see themselves in STEM field or in academic field, but maybe they are not decided yet, or maybe they had some insecurities about it. Daniela, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I'd mentioned the fact that you should believe in yourself. Don't let anyone tell you, I'll repeat myself, tell you what you cannot accomplish. Show yourself that you are capable, that you are enough, that you are relevant and ambitious. And there are endless opportunities in those fields, especially in STEM, even though we are not discussing it enough. I feel like it can make a real impact in your community, and we have a multitude of resources that can aid us along the way, and we should for sure use them to our best advantages.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was so nicely said. I kind of agree. And yeah, just adding to everything that you said, that you can do it, short and sweet. That was actually the motto in Tech Women Moldova community. But I think it says it all. You can do it. Just trust yourself, dream big, and work hard for those dreams that you have.
Thank you.
And I will also add to that, don't be afraid of some kind of mistakes or, let's say, failures, because mistakes are just part of the process.
Yeah.
So we
own them.
Yeah, and I think that we are really living in this culture that really promotes success, especially on social media and so on. So I'm really glad to see the change also in the social media, that it's more common to see people who are sharing the bad experiences as
struggles.
Well. So remember that we only see the scene, we don't see the backstage of others people's life. So really don't be afraid of trying. I think that as long as you are willing to learn and try, as long you are a winner.
I'd like to thank you, Joanna, Daniela, Ana Maria, for valuable information and inspiring examples, which for sure are very empowering for all women or even men who are listening to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.